citizens, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation episode 102. I'm Jeff, and if this is your first time here, welcome. Nindie Nation is your one-stop weekly shop for everything independently developed for the Nintendo Switch. Today we'll be taking a look at every new indie game hitting the eShop from February 6th through the 13th. And after that, we'll check out the eShop deals to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced. New episodes of Nindie Nation hit YouTube on Tuesdays, but if you prefer to do something different with your eyes, you can listen to the audio podcast feed, which is hosted by our friends at the Nintendo Village. On Thursdays, we gather around the old YouTube channel for a fun live stream we call Nindies at Night, and I hope you can come join us this Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's a lot to keep track of, so here's a cheat code. You can follow us on Twitter at Nindie Nation, or you can join us in our brand new Nindie Nation Discord server. The link to the Discord server is in our Twitter bio and this episode's description, so I hope you'll consider joining us. After back-to-back weeks with excellent new releases, we're off to a great start for 2021 with yet another solid lineup for this week. What have been your favorites so far? I just wrapped up Cyber Shadow, and that's probably my game of the year so far, but Shing isn't far behind, and there's quite a few already on my backlog. Anyways, enough chit-chat, citizens. It's time to get into the new releases. But before we do that, we first have to look back on the games we missed since last week's episode. So let's dive right into the 6 neglected Nindies and 5 Nindie no-nos that released since episode 101. Last week, Forever Entertainment added another title to the growing list of games that are utilizing that 1-bit visual style as popularized by games like Minute and Downwell when they released BinaryStar Infinity for $4.99. It's a horizontal and vertical scrolling space shooter for 1 or 2 players that looks fast and fun with 8 levels to blast your way through. It's backed by a dark electro wave soundtrack and comes complete with survival and boss rush modes to keep those Joy-Cons synced. Asterix and Obelix is the cartoon/comic/movie series that is largely unknown in America, but is widely adored across Europe and has delivered a pretty decent slate of games over the years. And last week, they got a brand new adventure with Asterix and Obelix XXL3 The Crystal Menhir, which launched for $30 from Microids. For the first time, it includes 2-player co-op throughout and is an isometric 3D action adventure that calls back to the licensed games of the PS2 and GameCube era, and so far it's received pretty positive reviews. Cresteaju. Not sure if I'm saying that one right, almost certainly not. It's probably a Nindie no-no anyways, but this story is just too bizarre to not put out front. Cresteaju is a Japanese RPG from the early days of the internet that has this weird visual mishmash of voxel environments and 2D characters. Outside of that, it sits somewhere between a 16 and 32-bit JRPG, and it looks, I don't know, like all of the other games of that era. No idea if it's any good, but you can check it out as it was ported by Plicky and is available now for $5.99. Escape 2088 is yet another point-and-click escape room game set in a dark, drab world. It's released by OnSkull Development for $4, and for that price, I really appreciate that they included touchscreen controls. And then Radaleka's game just missed the deadline last week, but nonetheless, their newest visual novel, How to Take Off Your Mask Remastered, dropped on the eShop for $14.99. The story revolves around a girl who gets turned into a cat, and it features Japanese voice acting throughout. I'm not sure where this next game falls, so it'll sit right before the no-nos this week, but I'm not very confident in that decision. Chili Dog Interactive has yet to impress me, but they released Glittering Sword for $4.99, and the description starts with,
"Not every game can be rated solely by screenshots. It's like a human's essence that can't be measured by a staged photo. And thus, Glittering Sword is not that kind of game that some may think judging by screenshots or trailers."
Basically, they're telling you the game isn't as bad as it looks. It's like when I walk in the room and I see that my kids have somehow spilt more bowls of cereal on the floor than there are actual children, and the second I look them in the eye, they say, "I can explain." I would try to explain this game, but Chili Dog specifically says,
Best way to describe this game by phrase, fantasy adventure set in a cozy world with Sokoban-style puzzles.
So I mean, if they're gonna tell me how to do my job, who am I to argue? And now, my friends, it is time for the Nindie No-Nos. The games that, under no circumstances, carry any recommendation by Nindie Nation, but released last week nonetheless. Garbage game superstar Piotr Skalski blessed us with not one, but two atrocities last week, and neither of them are playable outside of handheld mode. Blow Up Monsters is a Angry Birds for $3, and Magical Maze also released for $3 and is about as magical as waking up to your cat itching its butt on your nose. And PixArts. Oh, PixArts. For $4, they released a game that we've absolutely covered before from other publishers, lending to the fact that they just republished a free game demo because they are absolute stewards of every reason the delete button exists. Jumping Stack Ball is the next game by PixArts that you should never consider. Oh, and we've got another new Nindie No-No publisher this week. This one goes by the name of Wow Technology, and they definitely make me say wow, all right. There's no pictures and no trailer for their 99-cent Super Meatball, but they describe this game that exists solely to encourage accidental purchases of people looking for Super Meat Boy by describing this waste of icon space as
Super Meatball is a phenomenon, is Animal Planet. Super Meatball is game combined race car. Football and meatball? The rule is easy. Shoot the fork on your car to get the meatball and bring the meatball into the shark's mouth to get one score.
And I swear I just got dumber having simply experienced the description of that game, and I apologize to all of you. With my luck, I just added this thing to my brain and pushed out like a week of 7th grade biology. I didn't need mitochondria anyways. And finally, the game that released last summer and was pulled off the eShop for not only being a piece of garbage, but one that also included music pulled directly from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, has now returned. FinalSword Definitive Edition, I'm assuming no longer has the illegally obtained, unlicensed music, and is just a mess of something trying to be a third-person action game all on its own. If you ever wanted to see what Comic Sans looked like if it was a video game, it's FinalSword for an embarrassing $16.99. Now that was a list of no-nos for the record books, wasn't it? Ooh boy, that was some hot garbage. The neglected Nindies weren't too bad though. I'll be giving BinaryStar a shot, and while I don't think Cresteaju is gonna be good, I am morbidly curious to see what a mid-90s Japanese browser game looks like in 2021. Anyways, what about you? If you see anything here up your alley, let me know in the YouTube comments, on Twitter at Nindie Nation, or let's chat about it on Discord. Now that we've looked back, let's now look forward together, citizens. Because these are the 19 new releases hitting the eShop from February 7th through the 13th. Ultimate Games kicks off the week with a top-down twin-stick shooter called Contract Killers that launches for $7.99. It's developed by Cappy Cappy Games, a Nindie newcomer, and looks pretty bare bones in terms of function, but it has this bloody Reservoir Dogs style to it that gives it a bit more of its own identity. On February 9th, we see the return of Lori and Corey Cole, creators of the Quest for Glory series, with their new story-driven adventure game called Hero U Rogue to Redemption. Developed by Transsolar Games and published by Silesia Games for $15.99, it really mixes in a bunch of gameplay styles into a core that's mostly an isometric adventure. You've got some stealth gameplay, some mini-games, some turn-based combat, and a decent dose of humor throughout. It's overall a neat little package of all kinds of gameplay styles that plays on a premise similar to the Harry Potter series. Hexagon Defense is a game where you play as a spinning hexagon that shoots, lines or something at whatever the game decides to throw at you. It's $3, it doesn't support gameplay on the TV, and it's developed by Nether Yoshi Studio, which was the name of my Mortal Kombat Mushroom Kingdom fanfic.
Get over here!
Look, there's a lot of stupid kid games where you play out some fantasy job simulation, and most of them are pretty bad, but I'd not be doing my job if I didn't tell you the My Universe series by Microids is actually one of the better ones. Now, their baby series is garbage, but I actually gave my daughter the My Universe fashion something or other to try on her own, and I was surprised at how much the game had going for it. Anyways, this week they release My Universe Pet Clinic Cats and Dogs. I'm not sure why that had to all be in capital letters, but it is. It released for $29.99, and if you've got a kid who would love to pretend they run their own veterinary office, it's probably a safe pick. Just know that these Microid games usually go on sale for half off on Amazon for the physical copy all the time. We're also getting 2 new PixArts games this week, so that's a thing. Bubble Bubble Ocean is a Bust-A-Move clone for $5, and Urban Street Fighting is, my goodness, it's something else. It's a fighting game with just the worst physics, and everything about it looks bad, but in the funniest way possible. It says it has a AAA graphics engine, so who am I to say otherwise? What else does it have? Realistics sound effects? Okay. 5 sceneries. Ooh, I love sceneries. We might have to play this one on Nindies at night sometime. Gotta get those sceneries. Ow. And on the 10th, we get another entry in the text-based adventure series from 10 Man Games when they release Choices That Matter and Their Heroes Were Lost. Good lord, these games have the most epic names. This one is about waking up in a prison and trying to find your way out, and they basically play like a Quantic Dream game, but without any graphics or voice acting, just choices that matter. I kid, but these do look pretty cool for the genre. I'd be interested to know if any of you have ever played these, so let me know if you have. Hashtag Sinuca Attack is the latest release by East Asia Soft, and it's certainly an interesting one. It's a side-scrolling platformer that is built around the premise of playing pool. Like, your character has a jetpack, and the main mechanic is hitting pool balls with your Q. I don't think it looks very good, or at least not $5 good, but the music from the trailer is already stuck in my head. I don't know. This might be a wishlist title worth considering when it goes on sale, and East Asia Soft does do pretty deep sales pretty frequently. On February 11th, we get the big Thursday drop off to a retro-inspired start with Whitehorn Digital and Fancy Fish Games Aground, which launches for $14.99. Getting a lot of Terraria vibes, or maybe just a budget version of a 2D Minecraft here. You're trying to survive by building your own settlement, and that requires you to mine for materials. You know the drill. Get it? Drill? Mine? Nice. It's also got that whole evolution thing going for it because you start out with very primitive abilities, but then you can eventually do things like build spaceships. It looks pretty cool. If there's one super specific genre that manages to consistently deliver on the Switch, it's murder mystery detective games with anthropomorphic animals. I swear, the sentences that this show makes me say. The Flower Collectors is just that type of game, and it takes place in Barcelona in 1977. The team at Me Poo Me Games does a really good job of recreating the time and place too, with the colors, the towns, and the areas you explore. Just like most of these games, you explore crime scenes, interrogate people, the usual. But it's received pretty good reviews so far and looks like yet another one of these animal-filled detective games worth exploring for $17.99. If you want to try it out before shelling out, though, there's a demo you can try right now. Can't beat that. Plug-in Digital teams up with Rablo Games to release a game that I think any RPG fan can immediately empathize with when they release Healer's Quest for $14.99. It's a traditional JRPG in style, but carries an aesthetic that blends, it's very unique. It's like claymation mixed with pixelated storybook art. What would you call it? It's very different for sure. The story centers around the, quote,
most underappreciated party member in any fantasy realm.
And it carries a comedic tone throughout. You play as the healer, who can also buff the party, and your job is to just carry the team on your shoulders as they work their way through an otherwise traditional JRPG story. I dig this one. If Cyber Shadow didn't quench your thirst for ninja action, there's another game this week, but I'm not sure it's gonna meet that same level of awesomeness. Art Games Studio, who has yet to really impress me, releases Negative: The Way of Shinobi for $4.24. It boasts a neat hand-drawn 2D art style and seems to mix platforming and punishing combat the way you'd expect any ninja game to do. It claims to be heavily narrative-focused, and the visuals are pretty cool, but I can't help but laugh at the name. That's probably just me though, because my son has completely confused the words naked and negative, so whenever I see the word negative, I picture him throwing off all of his clothes, as 3-year-olds often do, and running around the house yelling, "I'm negative!" and then just imagining said ninja in this game doing the same. Anyways. A potentially great little mobile port hits the Switch on Thursday that already has a demo available, and so far I've had a pretty good time with it. Summer Catchers by Noodle Cake, who released last week's Nuts, is an auto-running 2D driving game that does a lot of stuff similar in vein to the Altos games, but it does it quite a bit differently too. It's a bit slower paced, and each level plays like a race where you have to solve mini puzzles along the way. They usually boil down to just pressing a button based on a predefined loadout that you picked before starting the race. The 2D pixel art and the music surrounding it are very calming, and overall its mix of race, level up, and drive some more has been really enjoyable. It features support for 2 players, and like I said, the demo is available now. It launches at a half-off discount for $5.99 this Thursday, and I know I'll be playing a bit more of the demo just to make sure there's enough there to justify a purchase. But if so, Summer Catchers is one that I'm currently planning to pick up when it launches later this week. Clockwork Origins brings another endless runner type with a twist to the Switch this week with Tri-6 Infinite for $7.99. You pick from one of 3 super futuristic bikes and plow through a procedurally generated third-person neon world filled with obstacles to see how far you can get. In that way, it's a lot like Lost Wing, and it seems like a lot of fun. However, similar to Lost Wing, I'd say this is a great game to throw on the wishlist and wait until it's maybe $2 or $3. And finally, wrapping up the big Thursday drop, we've got our pick of the week with Undermine by Thorium for $19.99. This lovely little Nindie trifecta gave me well over 20 hours of gameplay when it released on Xbox Game Pass last fall, and I can't wait to dive right back in on the Switch. It plays most like a 2D Zelda game, or maybe like the dungeon aspects of Moonlighter as you dive deeper into a series of caves and mines to reach the next level. Fail, return to the surface, explore the shops, upgrade your characters, and try again. The execution of the action RPG combat is where Undermine shines the brightest, and the dark yet very colorful aesthetic really helps it stand apart from others in the genre. If you like traditional Zelda combat, it's pretty much a must-own. And for those of you who can't get enough of the trifectas, Undermine comes complete with procedurally generated dungeons, rogue-like mechanics, and RPG elements! But we're not done yet for the week because there's still 4 titles to hit the eShop on February 12th, the first of which I could have sworn already released, but is nonetheless Halloween Forever by Vitae Backroom for $9.99. Maybe it's just because I've been watching the development of this game forever, no pun intended, but I'm really excited for this one. It's a retro platformer that was developed in a way that can actually run on the NES, and I've found that when developers work within those limitations, we get some really cool results. As such, it's probably only going to be a fit for those of you who are really into that tried and true formula, but if like me, you're a sucker for seeing a new NES game in 2021, Halloween Forever should definitely be on your list. Just, if I may be a controller snob for a second, play it with the D-pad, please. Okay. Next up is a game where I either need to tread lightly or risk receiving a bevy of downvotes and maybe even losing a few subscribers. You know what? Screw it. If you've loved the last decade of the Galgun series, you know exactly what you're getting when one of the best-known Pervy games gets its Pervy McPervyston remaster with Galgun Returns by P-Cube for a preposterous $44.99. That's a lot of P's. This game plays like a light gun game, you know, like Virtua Cop, but instead of just shooting bad guys with guns loaded with bullets, You watch as a bunch of scantily clad anime girls pop up on screen, and you virtually poke them to watch them moan for joy because your magic touch is just oh so satisfying. Now, I've been told by many people that these games
actually have really good gameplay.
But I think that's the same group of people who say they go to Hooters because the wings are actually pretty good. If you want any further proof what this game is about, just look at the description to see such bullet points as
Aim for the ecstasy shot.
Or
An absolute wealth of panty design.
Just, hey, you listening? Come here. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. If you love these games, great. I know a lot of people love Galgun. I get it, that's fine. They've been around for a long time. I understand. But just so you know, if you go walking around in public and you start poking girls in their no-no regions, that will definitely cause a series of reactions, but most certainly none of them will be a smile and cry of joy. None of them. For something that will give teenage boys the exact opposite reaction as Galgun, why not try Number 1 Crosswords by Eclipse Games? This wild $4 romp will arouse you to the point that you retreat inside yourself and potentially lose all sexual drive. But hey, you'll improve your vocabulary. That's something. And last but not least, Ratalaika's release this week is from developer Rasul Mano, and the way he describes his $5 twin-stick shooter, Ultra Goodness 2, is just fantastic. He says,
Ultra Goodness is about having fun, so turn off your brain and show 'em your rage.
Other than that, yeah, it's a pixelated top-down shooter with just a ridiculous amount of blood for how lo-fi the visuals are, but it comes complete with a cat companion and various upgrades, and yeah, it seems like a stupid good time, or a good stupid time, I'm not really sure. Not really sure if it matters either. What's jumping out to you this week? Poking some girls? Digging for gold? I hope you'll check out Undermine, and I can't wait to try out some more summer catchers. Let me know what you're picking up in the YouTube comments. I like this week. It's a nice, middle-of-the-road, almost kinda boring week. The new releases are a little all over the place with a couple of titles worth checking out, and the deals are a good combination of hidden gems and all-time favorites. We've got a good list this week that, just like the new releases, includes something for everyone. So with 329 games currently on sale over at the Nintendo eShop, these are our picks for the 9 Nindies on sale at their lowest prices ever through at least February 13th. First up this week is where high quality and underappreciated meat like few others do. OutBuddies DX is, in my opinion, a terrible name. The game, however, is one of the best Metroidvanias on the Switch. It uses wonderful pixel art and explores a really cool wide-open Lovecraftian world set to an excellent atmospheric soundtrack. It's a pretty big game too. You should expect to spend at least a dozen hours or so in this world. If you're in the mood for some open exploration platforming, you really can't go wrong with OutBuddies DX while it's 56% off for $7.99. Before getting gobbled up by Microsoft, one of the last Double Fine games to release is, I think, one of their best. And that is Knights and Bikes, which is 33% off for $13.99. This is a comic book style RPG about two girls who are best friends and going on a crazy adventure together. The game received rave reviews across the board when it released and is a hilarious PG or so rated story that delivers about 8 hours of genre mixing gameplay for 1 or 2 players. One of my favorites from last year, especially of the category where I didn't expect to love it, is Dicey Dungeons, and there's a full dungeon run available on Nindies at Night if you want to take a peek for yourself. This is a dice-based card battling RPG, but I'll tell you what, that is absolutely not the kind of game that I typically play, and I fell in love with it anyway. Read up on Dicey Dungeon, watch our Nindies at Night Let's Play, and if you could see yourself getting sucked into some addictive luck meets strategy-based gameplay, Dicey Dungeons is currently 25% off for $11.24. A game that has been the topic of conversation over in the Nindie Nation Discord recently has been Slimeson, the critically acclaimed Twitch-based platformer that sits right alongside games like Super Meat Boy or Celeste. Slimeson will have you tearing your hair out with its difficulty, but then feeling like a god when you finally make it to the next level. If that's your bag, you can pick it up while it's 75% off for just $2.99. One of the games from last summer that had a very brief moment in the spotlight but was quickly overshadowed by other titles was Raji, an ancient epic. This action-adventure that mixes combat and platforming from all sorts of perspectives gained the spotlight predominantly because of its setting in ancient India. It's probably easiest to compare Raji to the God of War series outside of the 2018 reboot, and the story clocks in at about 5 or 6 hours. It's a fun, solid adventure with a unique perspective that isn't a huge time commitment, and is now available for 25% off at $18.74. If you picked up Habroxia 2 this week and you're wanting more, or maybe you just got that retro shoot 'em up on the brain, the original Habroxia is a fun little throwback to a bygone era. It's only a couple hours long, but it's a great way to quench that thirst for a mostly traditional shmup that has a couple of neat ideas of its own, too. At $3.19, 60% off makes it an easy pick, but don't sleep on the brand new sequel for $10 either. One of the best multiplayer indies you'll find is the beloved Runbow. And for fans of Nindie Nation, it's even better because over the years, the developers have added other indie characters such as Shantae, Shovel Knight, and Juan from Guacamelee to give it even more indie fan service. Runbow is mostly all about platforming and racing, and it supports up to 8 players both online and off. There's a solid little single-player experience if you want to hone your skills, but it's mostly meant for multiplayer chaos. At 80% off for only $2.99, you should consider Runbow a must-have and a new staple for your multiplayer game nights. And speaking of all-time Nindie greats, it's been a while since we've recommended it, so what better time to mention that Crypt of the Necrodancer is back on sale at 80% off for $3.99. If you're unaware, this is a dungeon-crawling action RPG that plays like a rhythm game set to the tune of some seriously sick chiptunes. What's more is that this one is practically infinitely replayable because it includes procedurally generated levels, rogue-like mechanics, and RPG elements! And finally, if all of these mixed genres, never-ending content, super deep story games are just too much for you this week, well, look no further. Coming in at the spontaneous purchase price of $2.99 is an adorable little puzzle platformer called Dadish. In case you're wondering, yes, you're a radish that is also a dad. You platform your way through food-themed levels and track down your children in this game that is surprisingly good, especially when it's half off. Plus, if you play it and you want more, you can check out the sequel, which just released a couple of weeks ago. See, I told you it was a pretty good week all around. We covered 39 games this week, so if you've got nothing to say in the comments, then you're just being rude. Let me know, I want to hear. In fact, if you prefer more live conversation over the YouTube comments, that's okay, because we can communicate via digital birds on Twitter at Nindie Nation, or we can participate in discourse on the Nindie Nation Discord. Just check the description for links to join us, and thanks to all of you who have already made it a great place to check in for some good old video game discussion. Other than that, friends, it's time to wrap this thing up. Last week I told you that we'd cover a long-lost Nindie finally making its way to the Switch, and that there was a sequel to one of the worst Nindies ever. But I had my dates off, and that's actually what's coming next week. Sorry about that, I'll make sure you all get a refund. But there's also a hilarious-looking cat game coming next week, and just a big old spread of creative indies coming out pretty soon. So stay tuned for what looks like a great week coming up next. New episodes hit YouTube each and every Tuesday, but if you'd rather listen, our audio podcast feed is hosted by the Nintendo Village. Whether you're looking for podcasts, articles, reviews, or even more YouTube content, the fine folks over at the Nintendo Village do it all in the name of the house that Mario built, and you can check them out at thenintendovillage.com. Stop back by this Thursday for Nindies at Night, and as always, if there's some great deals that just can't wait until next week, you'll find a quick deals video posted on Friday. Thanks for joining us this week, citizens. I look forward to seeing you here again next week and chatting with you in the meantime. Until then, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 102. And remember, no matter what kind of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.